In today's video, we unearth some Gothic monster hunting tabletop miniatures games and also start prepping our warband for the Silver Bayonet from Joseph McCullough and Osprey Games. Well, hi folks, welcome to the channel. I'm Lee, your old hammered host. Lynn is out of town for a few days, so that's always a little bit dangerous. So to stay out of trouble, I'm going to do some prep work in anticipation of the Silver Bayonet, a game of Napoleonic Gothic horror written by Joseph McCullough and published by Osprey Games. So just for fun, I went to the bookshelf and I dug out some other Gothic horror games from the collection. So for example, here we have Witchfinder General from Dashing Dice Games. This is kind of a Pike and Shot slash Puritan slash English Civil War era game where you have your witch hunters going after vampires and werewolves and Barghast and other creatures of the night. And over here we have Gothic, a dark companion for In Her Majesty's Name, which of course is a game of Victorian steampunk type skirmish adventures written by the Ministry of Gentlemanly Warfare. Then of course there's Dracula's America from Osprey. This is kind of like the Wild West meets zombies and vampires and cultists, and there's several supplements written for this. Then here's a couple of obscure ones. This is Gothic Horror Vampire Wars from West Wind, and then Chaos in Carpathia, which is another Victorian era, a monster hunting game, and this one is from Blue Moon Manufacturing. So if you look at the historical eras in which these games are set, we have Victorian, Wild West, which runs parallel to Victorian. So Gothic Horror Vampire Wars, I'm a little fuzzy as to the exact time frame they were shooting for there, but Witchfinder General, Days of Revelation, definitely going after that 17th century folklore vibe. And then, of course, if you were talking about some kind of a medieval or Renaissance fantasy setting, Mordheim and or Warhammer Fantasy Skirmish would probably have you covered there. So I won't pretend to have any insight into Joseph McCullough's creative process, but it's not hard to imagine him looking at the Gothic monster hunting genre and thinking, there's plenty of vampire hunting games set in the Victorian era. Why don't we try something set several decades earlier during the Napoleonic Wars? So I ordered my copy of the Silver Bayonet back in March, and now tracking is telling me that it should arrive this evening, November 9th by 10 p.m., which is actually sooner than I anticipated. Now I had planned to have a brand new warband for Silver Bayonet all painted up by the time the book arrived. However, that's not looking very likely at this point. Fortunately, we have plenty of Warhammer Fantasy Empire figs that are ready to go, so we can start playing Silver Bayonet right away, even if the Empire minis aren't exactly Napoleonic. However, I'm still going to proceed with painting a new warband as well. We have lots of minis in the pile of shame, and this is a good excuse to pull some of them out and get them table ready. In fact, once I'm done shooting this video, I'm going to take these figures here outside, get them primed, and then move them to the paint table. So a number of other YouTubers have received early review copies of the Silver Bayonet, several weeks in advance in some cases. So I've been able to glean a little information about the game from watching their videos, but I'm still a little murky about the specifics of building a warband. Hopefully the figures I've chosen here will fulfill the requirements of a Silver Bayonet warband, but if they don't, then I may have to swap in some other minis. But for now, this is my best guess, and it's what I'm going with. So with the Silver Bayonet being set in the Napoleonic era, that puts it around the year 1800 to 1815. So it precedes the Victorian and Wild West genres, but comes somewhat after the Pike and Shot era, which makes finding the appropriate minis a little tricky, since I don't have a Napoleonic army just sitting around in the collection. I do have, however, some Pike and Shot type figures. So these are, let's see, plastic Firelock Musketeers. And here's a box of Pike and Shot infantry. There's 40 figs in here, so even if you didn't use the pikemen, that's a lot of musketeers that could be proxied in for Napoleonic monster hunters. But that's not the route I decided to go. Instead, I decided to dig into some of these boxes of War Machine. Over the last couple of years, I picked up quite a few of these unit boxes, sometimes because they were on sale, and sometimes just because I really liked the sculpts and figured I could use them for something down the road, even though I've never actually played War Machine. So some of these figures go back to 2003, while some are more recent, like I think these are from 2017, if I remember the fine print correctly. So the point is, a lot of these War Machine figs would go on sale from time to time as War Machine was going through its various iterations. And also, they're kind of utilitarian. So for example, these Arcane Tempest gun mages, those could be pirates, Those could be highwaymen. They kind of fit into that sort of generic black powder steampunk vibe. And so you could use them for a lot of different things. And so I stockpiled some of these guys and thought, well, when the time comes, when an appropriate game comes up, we will break them out and paint them. So here, this Choir of Meneth. There's some nice priest minis in there, so I got one of those in the Warband. These Holy Zealots, this might be a more recent unit box, but I really like the look of these guys, particularly the guy with the big club there. So he's going to be one of the fighters in the Warband. Here's Signar Long Gunner Infantry, and this is from about 2014, I think. So those are the riflemen I have on the team. And then these Infernals, I think this box came out in the last couple of years, but I really like these guys as cultists. So I took one of them, and he's going to be some sort of an assassin if I can find a roster slot that fits his look. Another advantage to the War Machine figs is a lot of them are one-piece sculpts, which kept my gluing to a minimum. Though I will say these Cossite Woodsmen probably are pretty neat models once the guns and the heads and the arms and everything are glued on. But that wasn't my bag right now. We're going to move forward with the single-piece sculpts. So let's take a closer look at these guys. So here are the Long Gunners. That's the Signar Long Gunner Infantry. This guy here is the Infernal Cultist. I actually had him primed up from before. He was going to be part of a Frostgrave crew. But here he's going to be now working for the Napoleonic Monster Hunters. Then here's the Holy Zealot with the mace. This is a Sea Dog. This is a pirate. Here's one of the priests from the Choir of Meneth. And so somehow I guess I'm going to have to hand paint that little scroll there. Maybe I can get Lynn to help me with that since she's pretty good at it. And this guy back here, who almost looks like he could be from that old Rackham Confrontation game, is actually part of the Signar Black 13th Strike Force, I believe. And then this must be a gun mage officer. So I think that's what all these guys are. So that is an 8-person hunter team. And I think that's the number they're shooting for in the game. Though if I'm a little high or a little low, I will make the appropriate adjustment. But hopefully these guys can get painted up. So granted, if you look at these guys, Napoleonic may not be the first word that jumps into your head. But they don't look out of place, I think, especially in a fantasy type game. So again, if these are monster hunters, they're going to have arcane equipment. They're going to have the latest technology. And so, yeah, you could imagine them being somewhere in that 1800 to 1815 range out there in the graveyard or up in the mountains of Carpathia fighting werewolves and vampires and other creatures of the night. All right, I guess that's a wrap on our quick prelude to the Silver Bayonet. I'm going to take these guys upstairs now and get them primed while I have a few hours of daylight left. So hopefully they get painted up in a timely manner, but even if they don't, sometimes that happens. Please check back again for our Silver Bayonet Battle Report videos. They should be a lot of fun. And in the meantime, here is a video you might enjoy. This is some classic Mordheim, peasants versus vampires, so that'll get you in a Silver Bayonet vampire hunting mood. As always, thanks very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's video, and we will see you next time. So take care.